when you talk about a price ratio at 85 to 1 and a mining ratio at 7 to 1, that in and of itself is bad enough, right? I mean, that in and of itself says, well, something's really wrong, and maybe it doesn't have to get 1 to 1 with its mining ratio, but it's got to get a whole hell of a lot closer than 11 times away from it. But when you put it into the context, for example, of a 1.1 billion ounce deficit versus supply versus demand over the last 6 years, another 265 million ounce deficit this year, and doesn't even include the military applications that mysteriously have been omitted from the Silver Institute's numbers. When you realize that the M2 money supply is up 14 times since 1980, and silver is selling at a 40% discount to its 1980 high. When you realize that there are 2.9 billion ounces of silver traded on the LBMA every day, which is 3.5 times annual global mine supply. When you realize that these bullion banks that are stupid as a mud wall are short to the tune of 4 to 6 billion ounces that supposedly are available for delivery, those contracts that they sell on the LBMA over the counter market, which isn't an exchange where there's some entity that can come in and save the day. This is a 1-to-1 deal. And all the people who have the other side of that trade think that they can stand for delivery. Doesn't mean they will, but they could. And if they do, that means there's 4 to 6 billion ounces of silver that could actually stand. And the reason that it's not for sure how many there is that it's a much more opaque market. It's a 1-to-1 market instead of an exchange like the COMEX. And so it's a lot more less transparent, if you will, than the COMEX is. But all of these people could stand for delivery, and yet there's only 300 million ounces available that is not already accounted for at the LBMA. We don't even know how much of that is really for sale. What if everyone stands for delivery? And so when you talk about this scenario where we see continual deficits, we see massive naked shorting, and we see the smart entities in the global south draining the exchanges, where 8.1% of the float, the available 300 million ounces, was delivered in August. Where is it going to? Who's buying it? And so we are entering a period of time where it's accelerating, and the countries around the globe that are buying silver understand that. This is why I made such a big deal about China flying around Latin America buying unrefined silver in the form of bars and and concentrate, which is the byproduct sludge, and the unrefined silver bars, the doré bars that are crudely refined by the miners who then send it to the refiners. Well, China says, I'll just pay you double and take it right off your hand, and I'll ship it to China and refine it myself. Well, they're already the largest or second largest producer of silver in the world. And if I had to bet, they're probably the largest. They just don't tell us how much they mine. And so we are entering a period of time where I think price discovery will ultimately be forced upon the world through some form of a issue where a failed delivery on the LBMA, which could, catalyze a massive spike in the price of silver, or something like COMEX, which is a rules-based exchange, where it's written into the rules that if in the interest of the exchange, we can basically say you can't get delivery, and we're just going to cash settle you. Well, that's a default. So could that happen? Yeah, why not? We're seeing all of these things progress and accelerate. And we're seeing countries accelerate their acquisition of silver. We see Russia being the first nation to openly admit it will be part of their state fund, and are dedicating money to accumulate not just gold, which the number that they talked about, Russian finance ministry has announced plans to exponentially increase its gold purchases, raising the daily acquisition from 1.12 billion rubles to 8.2 billion rubles for the next month. So, that's not just gold. They're doing it now with silver and with platinum and palladium, but they're making it part of a state-backed admission. Well, India, who's bought about 800 million ounces in the last 3 years, it's not openly discussed and admitted, but they have. Well, look at the cup and handle in silver, man. The 40-year cup and handle in silver is unlike anything I've ever seen.
Yep.
I mean, look at the cup and handle formation in silver. If you pull up a chart, it's enormous, and it's about 40 years long, which means it's very mature. And for those people who don't know technical analysis, it's one of the most bullish technical indicators of all time. So you see the cup and handle formation in both gold and silver, maybe even stronger in silver. And again, the only reason these countries aren't bitching is because they're the ones buying it. They're the ones knowing they've got the West over a barrel. You do not need to send, cruise missiles into the U.S. to fight the U.S. to beat them. You just need to beat them at their own game in a lawful manner, and that stand for delivering all the world's commodities. And that's what they're doing. And they're beating us because of our own stupidity, which is suppressing a market that no one ever stood for delivery. They are now, and that's how you win a game that is transitioning from opaque debt promises to commodity-backed ecosystem, which we certainly are, it seems like. So that'll all change when there is a non-delivery event, or there is a cash settlement event, or something that triggers the rest of the world to understand that price discovery on the West is a joke. And you look, for example, look at the difference between COMEX, which is rehypothecated 15, 16, 1700%, meaning 17 people all think they own the same, all have a contract and think they have claim to it. But if one person says, give it to me, and gets it, what happens to the other 16? Well, that's cash settled. But you look at the Shanghai Metals Exchange as an example. In order to trade a bar on the Shanghai Metals Exchange, you have to first buy a bar from one of the 6 or 7 pre-approved refineries who will give you that bar, and then they laser inscribe a serial number on it that is associated with the contract. And that inspires confidence and credibility. We don't have anything like that on COMEX. It's just completely, totally sold over and over and over and over and over again, because most of the people don't stand for delivery. So we'll cash settle if we're Bank of America or JP Morgan or whatever, and no one will ever know until people say, give it to me. And that's what happened to Bernie Madoff. Same thing. It's a Ponzi scheme until it's a business until it is discovered as a Ponzi scheme. And, me screaming and others like me screaming about this only does so good because, maybe the people who are standing for delivery understand it, but if really the people in this country understood it, it represents an opportunity of a generation to buy an asset that is being accumulated at levels people I don't think quite comprehend, because it's being masked by the inability to get real price discovery by this rehypothecation and this naked shorting in London that is for a very long time obliterated price discovery and the real value found inherently in this stuff. It's not lost on India or China or Russia or Saudi Arabia or the other countries who are using it against us, but it really truly is, in my book, in my mind, an opportunity of a generation, one that you will not find very often. Look at the fundamentals, price, demand, supply, lack of supply, errors in reporting of supply, rehypothecation, massive naked shorting, all of this stuff, and accumulation by half the world using that against us. This is a rare opportunity. Either you take it or you think I'm talking my book. That's up to you, but I'll just simply tell you, I've never seen anything like it. I think it's a bet that I would be willing to take if you have a time horizon that's not too long down the road, but markets can stay irrational longer than we can stay solvent. That's true. In the end, mathematics will win this. This is all about math. It's all about logic. It's all about economics. And in the end, that will all prevail. Don't know how it plays out or what triggers it, but I'd be comfortable taking that bet.
Me too.